Straight ahead on Law&Crime Daily. A verdict is handed down for celebrity chef Mario Batali.
It's an understatement to say that Mr. Batali did not cover himself in glory on the night in question.
A verdict is handed down for celebrity chef Mario Batali and the case of Dr. William Husel.
It was one piece of evidence that we never really gave a second thought to that ended up carrying the day for us.
We give you a look inside the deliberation room in an exclusive interview. Plus,
it became clear to me he was looking for something, proceeds to do a cavity search.
Conflicting testimony in the trial of Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. But first, the murder of Tara Grinstead.
She wouldn't have missed school and not called in. So at that point in time, I knew it wasn't good.
Jurors hear testimony from Grinstead's lover as Ryan Duke stands trial for her murder. Law&Crime Daily covering court cases from coast to coast. Nearly 20 years after the disappearance of Tara Grinstead, the former teacher and beauty queen's ex-lover takes the stand, giving jurors a look behind the curtain of the relationship. Ryan Duke, a student at the school where Grinstead used to teach, now stands trial for her murder. The case gained national attention in October 2005 when Grinstead went missing following a local beauty pageant. For years, the case went unsolved until the podcast Up and Vanish created a renewed interest in the case. By 2017, former students Ryan Duke and Bo Dukes were arrested and charged in her murder. The pair are not related, but were friends at the time of Grinstead's disappearance. Prosecutors say Ryan Duke confessed to killing Grinstead, saying he broke into her home and killed her after a burglary went wrong. After that, Bo Dukes helped burn her body in a pecan orchard. Duke's attorneys later said he was under the influence of drugs during the confession. In 2019, Bo Dukes was tried and found guilty in connection to Grinstead's death. This week, Tara Grinstead's lover and a veteran police officer, Heath Dykes, took the stand. On direct examination, Dykes explained his relationship with Grinstead and testified he cooperated with law enforcement's investigation.
Go ahead and ask you, were you married in 2005 when your relationship turned to a sexual nature?
Yes.
During that time period when you were involved in a romantic relationship with Miss Grinstead, how often would you see her?
Maybe twice a month. It was.
How often did you speak with her?
We spoke daily.
Were you forthright about the kind of relationship you had with Miss Grinstead when you spoke with GBI agents?
I did.
Were you cooperative in the investigation?
I was.
Through the course of this investigation, essentially until February of 2017, did you consider yourself to be a person of interest by the GBI?
I think I was. I felt like I was being.
And do you know how many times you were questioned by the GBI?
No.
Do you recall if the GBI took any of your devices, such as your work computer or anything of that nature, for evidence?
I turned it over to them. My workstation at work, laptop, and cell phone.
On cross-examination, defense attorneys zeroed in on the latex glove found near Grinstead's home. That later tested positive for Ryan Duke's DNA. Dykes explained he does not remember seeing the glove on Grinstead's property when he visited the night she went missing.
How many times did you cross over this area of the yard while you were investigating what was going on at her house?
Once going to the house and once going back to my car.
So 2 times you crossed over that area?
That's correct.
Fair to say you were trying to be alert to see if there's anything unusual in the yard?
Yes.
Did you, and I guess from your statement, you mentioned you didn't see anything unusual outside the house, right?
Did not. There was a jack-o'-lantern that was lit up on the front porch. And that's the only thing specific other than Dolly that I remember seeing.
And I guess, are you still of the opinion that you would have noticed a glove if it had been there?
Hey, I think we're getting out of the vehicle. I was so fixated on the house when I was walking to it, focused on getting to the door to knock on the door to see if she was there. When I saw her car there, I was kind of, okay, she's here. Car's here. She's here. And went straight, just kind of, I reckon, lack of a better word, tunnel vision, straight into the front door.
Your testimony is that you walked over that area twice.
Yes.
And you can't say one way or the other whether you would have noticed it.
I can't. I did not see the glove.
Joining us today is criminal defense attorney Nicole DeBorde and co-host Terry Austin. Nicole, with Dyke saying he didn't see the glove, do you think the defense may try to argue it's planted evidence? And would that even get them anywhere in a trial like this?
I think that the defense has to do anything and everything they can to try to mitigate the evidence that the prosecution is putting on in this case, which has been incredibly strong against the defendant. So I think it's very possible that they may argue, look, it wasn't there. Somebody who should have been a trained investigator was on the property and did not see this evidence. So it must have come from somewhere else and be potentially planted or unreliable evidence. That said, I don't think they will do much to help the defense. I do, however, see it being very likely that they might give it a try.
Yeah, the fact that he's an officer, I think, helps the defense just a little, but maybe not enough. Terry, Heath Dykes provided some interesting testimony. Do you think it was more helpful to the prosecution or the defense?
Well, he was fairly neutral as far as I'm concerned, because I don't think he really helped either team. But if I had to say which team I think he helped the most, I think kind of the defense. And I say that because, look, that glove is the one thing that really does tie Ryan Duke to this murder. It was his DNA on that glove. And so when this witness went to the house to check up on her, he didn't see the glove, and he testified as to that. He's a police officer. The jury's probably going to take his testimony very seriously. He cooperated fully with the police. And so I think his testimony, even though the prosecution brought him on as their witness, I think his testimony was very helpful as far as the defense was concerned.
Yeah, I mean, any points that a defense attorney can get from a prosecution's witness is a positive in any way, in any case that you try. So let's see if those few points they gathered here can help them as the trial continues. Still ahead on Law and Crime Daily, what went on inside jury deliberations that cleared the name of Dr. William Husel? But first, Hollywood exes Johnny Depp and Amber Heard face off, who we could expect to see on the stand next week. Welcome back. When court resumes next week, Amber Heard is expected to finish her testimony. An unexpected turn, though, as Heard's team will also call Johnny Depp back to the stand. Law and Crime Network confirms Heard's team will also call actress Ellen Barkin and Heard's sister Whitney to testify. This comes as part of a multi-million-dollar defamation lawsuit stemming from allegations of physical abuse Heard divulged in a Washington Post op-ed. Court is expected to resume in the trial on Monday, May 16th. Ahead of that, we're taking a closer look at Depp and Heard's conflicting testimony. Last week, Heard described an incident at the Hicksville trailer park where she says Depp performed a cavity search after an argument. Now, we want to warn viewers, this testimony could be triggering as the clip discusses sexual assault.
She kind of just leaned into me and put her, head on my shoulder and kind of grabbed my arm. Johnny gets really activated. He gets really upset. He's like grabbing my breasts. He's touching my thighs. He rips my underwear off. He was telling me we're gonna conduct a cavity search, shall we? Like, just shoved his fingers inside me.
When Johnny Depp was on the stand, he gave his own account of what led up to the argument on their trip.
And so you removed Kelly Sue's hand from Amber and you yelled at Kelly Sue and told her that Amber was your girl, right?
That's not correct.
That's not correct?
No, sir.
You had an argument with Miss Heard and you understood her to be upset with the way that you had handled that situation with Kelly Sue, correct?
I mean, I recall that was a part of the argument.
You would agree with me, Mr. Depp, that at a minimum you smashed up a bathroom sconce during that argument, correct?
Yes, sir. I punched a bathroom sconce.
Terry, Heard describes a violent sexual assault that I'm guessing would leave her in some amount of pain. But afterwards, she acted like nothing happened. So how does the jury reconcile that information?
You know, it's really hard not only to reconcile between Depp and Heard, but to reconcile what Heard herself said. I mean, she's saying that there was this violent incident, that he did a cavity search. Why would he be searching for drugs? They had plenty of drugs there. He did admit that he punched this light fixture, but he definitely does not admit to violently attacking her. And she talks about leaving that area, and she left and everything was fine. She was talking to her friends. She didn't call the doctor. There was no indication at all whatsoever that anything was wrong with her. And after a violent attack like that, you would think that she'd have some repercussions from that.
Yeah. Now, Nicole, what's the jury to do with this story? Because Amber Heard starts off by saying, hey, this is a weekend where there's nothing to do. We do drugs, and I had just done mushrooms. So what are we supposed to do with a story that comes from a person who admits to doing drugs, even though she says, you know what, it didn't affect me at this very moment?
Exactly. I mean, I just think that it is not super helpful testimony for her. And quite frankly, even as you're watching her testify, she's presenting with this dramatic sort of retelling of this event. And at the time, as Terry's already pointed out, she leaves, she talks with friends, there's no doctor called. There's more drama on this witness stand than there was at the time of the alleged attack. And we don't have any independent evidence or anyone to verify what she's saying. And now we have all this drama on the stand. I'm not sure that it's compelling, especially combined with the fact that she was on mind-altering drugs.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's going to come down to who is more credible in front of the jury as more and more testimony comes up. Of course, it's going to be interesting. Stay tuned to Law and Crime. Of course, we got our podcast as well as other streaming services that can bring you this case, that of Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. Coming up on Law and Crime Daily, a verdict is handed down for celebrity chef Mario Batali. Plus, an exclusive interview with famed defense attorney Jose Baez and a juror that helped acquit Dr. William Husel. Welcome back. We're getting a closer look inside the deliberation room just weeks after an Ohio jury acquitted a doctor charged with 14 counts of patient murder. Prosecutors said Dr. William Husel used excessive amounts of fentanyl and other lethal drugs on patients at Mount Carmel Hospital in Columbus, Ohio between 2015 and 2018. While the state argued the defendant murdered his patients, Husel's defense team, led by famed attorney Jose Baez, argued the doctor provided comfort care to patients in their final days. Throughout the weeks-long trial, jurors heard from Husel's co-workers, expert witnesses, and several family members of the alleged victims in the case. After more than 30 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a not guilty verdict on all charges. This week, Law and Crime Network's own Linda Kenney Baden spoke with juror Damon Massey and Jose Baez about deliberations. Massey explained he was one of two jurors that reached an impasse.
I said if I was a doctor, I probably would have administered another dosage myself. So that's when I said, you know what, how can I fault him? And if he's not guilty of these three different cases, then how can I find him guilty of these other ones that were so similar with vent removal? You know, when you remove a vent, you have to give them medicine. Was it a little higher than what people seen? Yes, but you can't just prove intent off of that.
The thing that he relied on to switch his vote, which was the living will, was not something that Diane or I had even really focused on during the trial. So it just goes to show that this was a jury that did its homework and dug its heels in and actually went through the records and really did a phenomenal and a thorough job.
Tara, you've litigated numerous civil trials. How important is it to find the right juror?
You know, there are some people who think that jury selection is the most important part of the trial. And I understand that because they are the ones who are going to decide the case. And you have to be very careful when you select a jury. And I've actually used consultants before, and they help you to determine the body language, whether or not someone is lying, whether they're going to be sympathetic. So it is critical. But, you know, Brian, at the end of the day, I think it's preparation. I think it's presentation that really is going to decide the case.
Yeah, I would definitely be one of those defense attorneys that say you pick the jury, you pick the case, and it's sometimes a lot better than the facts that you have. Nicole, was this the thought process you guess led to the acquittal? And does it make sense with the law and the facts?
I think that it makes a lot of sense. I think that this was a much more difficult case for the prosecution than many have said, and certainly than the prosecution thought. I think this is one that the medical community was watching. And while doctors certainly may have a different opinion about how much medication is appropriate, I think many in the medical community fear the prosecution coming in and second guessing medical treatment of this nature. And the defense team did an excellent job of bringing in experts to really go through in detail the records for each of these patients. So this particular juror hung his hat on one particular aspect, and there were plenty of decisions that could have been made by other jurors related to the treatment of each of these patients, leading to a not guilty verdict, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think Jose Baez really cares what the issue was that the jury hung their hat on, so long as it was a not guilty end of the day. But it's always interesting to see the difference of opinion between jurors and defense attorneys, especially when you get that acquittal. Thank you both. When we come back, closing arguments are presented in the case of Iron Chef America star Mario Batali. What verdict a judge quickly returns for the celebrity chef? Welcome back. Closing arguments were presented and a verdict is handed down in the sexual assault case involving celebrity chef Mario Batali in Boston. Batali, who grew to fame through Food Network and ABC's cooking show The Chew, was found not guilty of an indecent assault and battery charge for the alleged sexual assault of Natalie Tenney back in 2017. The two were at a Boston bar when Tenney snuck a photo of Batali over her shoulder. He saw her take the picture and ushered her over, saying they could take a selfie together. Tenney alleged that the chef touched her breasts, butt, and between her legs before asking her to go back to his hotel room while the two took photos. The alleged groping Tenney testified to is not seen on the photos shown in court. In the two-day-long trial, prosecutors called only 2 witnesses, and Batali's defense attorneys only called none, actually. On Monday, the celebrity chef waived his right to a jury trial, so the judge made the decision on the verdict, announcing it Tuesday afternoon.
This case is about credibility, and it's the court's job to assess the credibility of the witnesses. The complaining witness has significant credibility issues. Her reaction and lack thereof to the alleged assault is telling. The Commonwealth has not met its burden to the degree that's required by law. I'm going to find the defendant not guilty to the charge of indecent assault and battery.
Before the judge read the verdict Tuesday, both sides presenting closing arguments. Batali's defense attorneys wrapped up their case first.
Mario Batali didn't assault the alleged victim on April 1st, 2017. He posed with her to take some selfies, and that was it. You've seen each and every one of those photos and the live photos. Those don't depict an indecent assault and battery. They don't even depict a simple assault. Those photos and the video show an entirely consensual encounter between the two.
Prosecutors then gave their closing, telling the judge the victim came forward to tell her story.
Was Miss Tenney really supposed to never return to town, which was her regular hangout spot, because she'd been assaulted there? Was she supposed to not go to Italy that single time because the defendant was a part owner of it? Was Miss Tenney supposed to stop living her life because she was sexually assaulted by the defendant? She told you she was not going to do that. She told you that she came forward with this case so she wouldn't have to.
Nicole, as a public defender, I often say acquittals are either lost by the prosecution or won by the defense. So in this case, which one was it?
I think that it was lost by the prosecution, in that the prosecution was stuck with the witness who had credibility issues from the start, unfortunately. And, the prosecution doesn't make the facts. They simply decide whether or not to prosecute the case. And in this instance, they decided to move forward on her word, but her word was just not something that the court felt comfortable relying upon and proving a case beyond all reasonable doubt.
Yeah. Now, Terry, the judge began his decision by saying that Batali's conduct was not befitting a public figure. Somewhat weird, I would just say not befitting a person, but whatever. But then he found Batali not guilty. Why do you think the judge came to that conclusion?
You know, it was interesting when you listen to the first part of the judge's statement. It really did seem like he was going to come down and say that Batali was guilty because he said that his behavior was not becoming. But I think what he looked at was a couple of issues. First of all, as we heard in the clip there, that the victim was not credible, that it was particularly disturbing. She lied about her jury service. She said that she, definitely was disturbed, and frankly, she wasn't. And that was a lie. And so the judge really didn't like that. And he also didn't like the fact that she tried to evade a $200 club membership. And I think the other thing is the reasonable doubt. As Nicole has mentioned, you have to prove your case beyond a reasonable doubt. And there were so many doubts here. The photos did not show that there was an assault. So I think the judge, at the end of the day, made the right decision.
Yeah, and right decision by the defense, too, to go with a judge trial rather than a jury trial. Maybe that changed it all here. I'm not sure. But thank you both. And thank you for joining us here on Law and Crime Daily. We'll see you next time as we discuss justice in America.